Welcome back to another video of Mark Wade's Flash Run. Now, we're checking out the return of Barry Allen Part 2, and we are about to witness the most tragic day in the life of Wally West. Now, there's not as much setup to get through, guys, because mostly in our last installment, Barry Allen is back. He teamed up with Jay Garrick and Wally West against this new terrorist group, the Combined, who are attacking the Twin Cities, Central, and Keystone. Now, they had this big battle against the Combined. Wally barely got out of this battle alive, and Barry went a little rage mode. So, Wally is kind of suspicious, he's kind of worried about Barry, and he's going to look more into this. And that's where we left off, guys. So, in this issue, we're going to see Jay Garrick get some forces, because he's a little suspicious of Barry and everything's going on, and Wally and Barry are going to team up once again against the Combined. So, yeah, guys, if you're ready, let's dive into the Flash, number 76. We begin with Wally putting on the Flash costume, and he says, Barry's problem, if it is a problem, is more subtle. To me, his behavior seems to be growing increasingly erratic, unstable, as if he were protective of his own identity. A few nights ago, I could swore I heard him rail at some thug that he, and only he, was the Flash. Then again, my perspective could be skewed. I could have misunderstood him, read too much into his actions. That's the way paranoia works, isn't it? Now, it gets a note. It says that the Combined are striking this building on the 26th floor. Now, Wally says, Jay's been spending time with him too. Wish we could compare notes. See if he's noticed any change in Barry, but I haven't heard from him in days. Guess he's off with the Justice Society or something. Those old guys do like to stick together. Now we shift to Jay Garrick, and he walks into Johnny Quick's office, and he says, hello, Johnny. Now Johnny says, right with you, Jay. That's right. Bancroft, our Florida distributor, is hurrying. Move 10,000 videotape units down. Fast. And when I say fast, I mean fast. Now, Jay says, John. Now, that's when Johnny Quick says, in a second, not you, Carl, say yes, 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 and no on the seminar debates, and double schedule Colorado. We do well there, Kyle. And Jay says, John, and that's when Johnny says, don't apologize. You of all people are always welcome to drop by. How about we do lunch at the sushi bar? I could watch those chefs all day. Pure poetry in motion, they are. Now, Jay says, this isn't a social call. I'm not here to see Johnny Chambers. I'm here to see Johnny Quick. That's when Johnny Quick says, it's what you were afraid of, isn't it? It's happening. And Jay says, I think so, yeah. And I want to be ready. Now, Johnny says, I'm there, buddy. You need me to pull Jesse in on this? And Jay says, leave your daughter out of it. We won't have time to teach the youngsters all our tricks. This one's a job for those of us with a track record. Now Johnny says, you know who we could really use? And Jay says, Max. And he says, I'm right ahead of you. Now Johnny says, you always were. And he says to his pretty much his worker, his employee, Nadine, you consider yourself a self-starter? Now Nadine says, I suppose so. And Johnny says, great, then start running the show in my absence. I'll be back as soon as I can. Now we see Wally running with Barry, and they're running through the town trying to make it to this building, right? Now they eventually make it to the building. Now, Barry says 26, and Wally says that's what Piper said, 23, 24, 25. Now, they kick the window open, you hear a kush, and you see darkness. Now, Barry says, nobody's home. This tip is on the level. Now, Wally says, huh? And they walk in, they see this replica of the Twin Cities of Central and Keystone. And Wally says, you tell me. Now, Barry says, I don't believe it's a tabletop model of the Keystone Central area, built perfectly to scale. And Wally says, obviously these people like to keep their eyes on the prize. Notice how some areas are illuminated? What's the significance? Now it's just, man, he comes out in this really bright costume. He says, those, dear boy, are the sea sectors that have fallen completely under our control. Right now, they may be few and far between, but our plans are to light that entire model like a Christmas tree as soon as the flashes are finally disposed of. And Wally says, tell it to the judge, smart guy, you come with us. And he says, huh? A hologram? Barry, get back, it's a trap. And the man starts to laugh. And that's when Barry thinks, and he looks at Wally. They're both startled, and the man says in the background, indeed it is, and believe us, we've spared no expense to create a death trap that will at long last put you out of your misery. An ever-shrinking force field set to squeeze the life out of you. So Barry and Wally are stuck in this force field, and they may die. Now we shift to a subway, and we see Max Mercury. He says tokens. The man says 2. He takes tokens. He says tokens. The woman says 10. He takes the tokens. Now Jay comes by, and Max says tokens, and Jay says hello Max, and Max says nobody here by that name. Tokens? And that's when Jay says, Max, people like us don't need the subway to get around. You know that. And that's when Max says, nobody here named Max. You want to keep moving? And Jay says, oh, of course. I forgot you used to go by other names. There was what? Lightning? And Johnny says, Blue Streak. And Jay says, Quicksilver. And Johnny says, I like that one. You kept that one for a long time. And that's when Jay says, and Max Mercury, Whirlwind of the West. Damn, you were fast. And that's when Max says, for the last time, you got the wrong guy. You gonna make me call security? And that's when Johnny says, oh, for Pete's sake. And Jay says, no, come on, John, we're obviously mistaken. We got the wrong guy. Let's go. And Johnny says, but that's when Jay hits the token. He says, whoops, you had thumb in that cush. And all the tokens start to fall. But Max uses his speed to catch all of them. He says, my tokens. And he catches them all at quick speed and shows the speed powers. Now, that's when Jay says, gotcha. And Max says, damn reflexes. Alright, you got me. But I don't know what you're gonna do with me. Crime fighting's a young man's game. I gave it up a long time ago. You know that. And Jay says, I also know that you owe me at one. 1949. The Screaming Skull, remember? And Max says, you swore you never called that one in. Not unless it was a matter of life and death. Now, Jay says, what does that tell you then? Now, Max comes out of his door, and Jay says, you'll need this. Hope it still fits. He pulls out the Max Mercury costume, and Max says, you kept it all these years. And Jay says, I want to remember you, Max. You're my hero. And Max says, alright, where to? So the 3 old men, these 3 speedsters, walk out. Now we go back to Barry and Wally stuck in this chamber, right? In this force field, and it's shrinking. Now Wally says, the field, it's closing in fast, do something. And Barry says, maybe there's some sort of secondary trigger mechanism inside the room. I'll vibrate through and see if I can. That's when Barry tries to vibrate through the air, scat, and he's hit back, says, what the? Clever. The field automatically senses my vibrations and instantly adapts itself to block my frequency. It really is impenetrable. And Wally tries to punch you at sack. And he says, so that trick is out. Well, one of us have Barry pull another rabbit out of that hat. And soon. Now Barry says, suppose we try to vibrate simultaneously. And Wally thinks, yeah, right. Whoever designed this thing took that into account, Barry. Some of us aren't fast enough to vibrate, remember? I can't do it solo unless... And then you have Bing Bing. And he says, hey, come here. Now, Barry says, what? And Wally says, I might be able to sustain a vibrational pattern for a few seconds. If you jumpstart me, that's it. Like that. And they start to run, and Wally says, there. Now, while the field is busy attuning itself to my frequency, change patterns and jump. Barry jumps through, and Wally says, beauty, it worked. And check this out. Your power drive must have whacked out some of the field's sensors. I'm slipping through too. He starts to get his hand through. And Wally says, I can't get out on my own, though. Give me a hand, Barry. Sometime today, before I have to change my name to the MASH. Barry looks and hesitates. And Wally says, Barry, I can't maintain the vibration. The field is closing. Don't screw around, okay? Barry, get with it. Don't leave me hanging. For God's sake, help me. He puts his hand out. Barry goes to reach. And Wally says, that's it. Come on, man. I know there's a lot going on in your head these days, but I know you won't let me down. After all, we're a team. Barry closes his hands and leaves Wally. And Barry says, very touching. You almost had me too. But you know the old saying, Wally, this town's not big enough for the both of us. And Wally says, Barry, are you crazy? Why are you talking like this? Help me. And Barry says, help you? Why? You stole my name. You tried to replace me. Tried to make the world forget about Barry Allen. Now Wally says, Barry, look around you. Everyone remembers. They remember the kind of man you were. the things you stood for. Now Barry starts to run off. He says, of course they do. You're here to remind them, to be their champion, their hero, while the real Flash becomes some pathetic, forgotten figure swept in the dustbin of history. Now, he kicks all the building, this replica of the Twin Cities, apart. You got Klish. And Barry says, well, I'll show them. Trust me, Wally. I'll be remembered. Starting today, Barry Allen will be forever remembered as a man who destroyed an ungrateful city. And Wally shouts as his hand starts to go back into the force field. Barry, please, you got it all right. I never wanted to take your place. Everything I am, everything I do, I did to honor you. Barry looks. You're a mistake. He runs off, and before he leaves, he says, don't feel bad, though. You won't live long enough to regret it. And Wally looks as Barry abandons him. Wally says, Barry! He shouts, Barry! The force field starts to close. He drops to the ground and says, no, I'm not dying today. He tries to make it through. He slowly, gently, and hurry, and he barely makes it through before the force field kills him. Wally gets out here, and he gets out. He's like, now, who is it for? He's like, what's wrong with Barry? He gets back to his apartment. He hits the door open. It's in darkness. Wally looks at the TV and sees this news reporter say, news crews today finally caught up with a long-absent Flash. Though still vague on the nature of his disappearance several years ago, he offered this unexpected and devastating statement to the press. Barry says, since my return, I have found myself pleasantly surprised by a number of events that occurred during my absence. Chief among these was the notion that my former prodigy, Kid Flash, had chosen to keep my spirit alive by adopting my name and costume. While he slowly takes off his costume, Barry continues, I was touched, but not terribly startled. Ever since he was a boy, all he wanted was to follow in my footsteps. Tragically, however, he wasn't up to the job. Earlier this afternoon, he and I fell into a trap set by the Combine. I escaped. Wally West did not. And so it is with heavy hearts that I stand before you today to announce today that the Flash is dead. And we see Wally. He's out of his costume. He has the Flash costume in the garbage can. And Wally has his hands on his head as he kneels down. He sees his mentor has betrayed him. So guys, that was Flash number 76, The Return of Barry Allen, Part 2. Now, the first thing I'm going to go over is the whole team-up between Jay Garrick, Johnny Chambers, aka Johnny Quick, and Max Mercury. First off, when Jay showed up to Johnny Quick's office, that was a great scene because Jay's like, hey, I need your help, we gotta do something, and it really raised the stakes a little bit. But then the stakes were raised even higher when we saw Jay and Johnny show up to the subway. At first they're trying to get help from Max Mercury, but Max is like, hey, there's nobody named Max around here. You're looking for the wrong guy. And Max is really refusing being a superhero. He doesn't want to become a superhero anymore. He's just living out the life, right? But then Jay dumps the coins. It's like, nope. Gotcha. And that's when Jay tells him how, hey, you owe me. That was a really great part because like, hey, you owe me from 1949. That mission went on. And Max is like, hey, you told me that the way I could pay back the deal is in a life or death situation. And Jay's like, well, that's why I'm here. So it raises the stakes so much, and it just brings back so much nostalgia. Seeing these characters, these speedsters together is just really cool, right? And it shows how big of a storyline this is. So you got 3 speedsters there, but then you got 2 speedsters in the main part of the storyline with Wally and Barry, the OG speed. Well, we got Jay's the OG, but then Barry's he's the most well-known one. Then we got Wally, who's really well-known as well. But we got Wally and Barry. They team up against this one guy, the Combine. They don't really fight him, but they get stuck in a force field. And Barry betrays Wally. Now, I liked how Wally and Barry are working together. You see Wally, he's kind of suspicious, but he still believes in his mentor. And then he's just he's shocked. He has a big tragedy when he figures out that Barry betrayed him. And is this really Barry? And at the end, when we see Wally makes it out of that force field, we knew he wasn't going to die. But when he makes it back, he puts the Flash costume in the garbage can, and he hears that Barry telling the Twin Cities, Central and Keystone, that the Flash is dead. It was a really powerful moment. It really hit Wally and hit home and brought this whole issue together very well. It gets me really excited for the upcoming issues because we're going to see Wally now have to go against his mentor. And will Wally leave the Flash mantle behind and just let Barry take over it? And we'll see, guys. It's a great cliffhanger, and there's a lot of great action in this issue, and a really great twist at the end when we see Barry just leave Wally. I honestly thought Barry would just maybe kind of like not leave him just right away. Like, I knew this wasn't Barry, guys. We know this isn't the real Barry, but only in part 2 and already Barry's portraying Wally. Like, the plot is moving fast, which is great. Now, guys, overall, I'm gonna give this issue, part 2 of the Return of Barry Allen, an 8.5 out of 10. I thought it was a solid installment. It gets me excited for issue number 77. Now, guys, if you liked the video, give a big thumbs up and make sure to comment down below what you thought about this issue. And yeah, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you miss on my next Flash video. Flash number 77 will be covered next week. We're going to see how this story continues. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching and peace out.